I had been struggling with an eating disorder my entire life. And um, I came from a family of people who were binge eaters. And um, I had started trying to heal that a couple years before you and I started working together. The first thing I tried, I gained a bunch of weight. The second thing I tried was with a coach that I found on Instagram, and uh, it was a group class. That was not what I needed, because we really focused on the food. And it wasn't until I started doing this work with you that suddenly I realized it really wasn't necessarily about the food. The food was a factor, but it was really about what was making me eat. Why was I reaching for food? And being able to get to that and heal that is what actually worked. And I remember feeling really scared to do this work because I thought, all right, this is it. If this doesn't work, I am trapped. And yeah, it was incredible to finally work on the real material. It was hugely relieving, and everything just became a lot easier.
And you sort of addressed this a little bit. What was there anything that made you hesitate to sign up? And then what made you sign up despite those hesitations?
Well, desperation is a great motivator. I think that yeah, I had tried and failed. I was a terrible dieter. I really was an absolute terrible. My whole life, I was a terrible dieter. And I would always sabotage myself. So I had a lot of reasons not to try. But I had been on for many years, like a healing path, a healing journey. So I knew this was something that desperately needed addressing. I was unhappy, you know? I mean, it really came down to that. I don't think I understood how much of my life, my eating disorder was impacting adversely. Pretty much every aspect of my life. It was surprising. It was a surprising discovery. And then like the impact of actually healing this for myself has also been like an incredible discovery. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Totally beautifully amazing. What challenges or roadblocks do you remember coming up for you, especially in the beginning of the work? Um,
Well, okay, so I was very into like not being restricted. I felt like so I had a history of being the kid in my family who was restricted more than the others. So that was really important to me. And then I had questions that at the time were really important to me. One was like, do I have any addictions? Like, is this a food addiction? And if so, to what? Um, is it how much of it was about that? How much of it was about how I was feeling? And then I know for a long time we used to laugh because I would blame you for things. Chloe's making me do this um, a lot. And I also thought like I was going to have to give up something that's a huge part of my life, which is cooking. I'm really into cooking. Um, and I thought I would have to completely give it up and that my diet it would become like this restrictive, uh, functional diet without any pleasure. That was my biggest concern. Yeah.
and how did you overcome those feelings and those challenges around making it fit for you in your life with all the things you already enjoy and sort of working through the idea of restriction and control for yourself?
Well, one of the things that was really great at the very beginning on our first meeting, we established some ground rules. And one of the things you asked for was radical honesty. So I did. I was completely honest with you. I brought everything up. And so we talked through a lot of it. And then I think, we did, in the beginning, you helped put together a food plan for me. It actually really wasn't that different from how I was eating. It was really a shift in quantity, like balancing out, the vegetables and the protein and starch and things like that. And sure, sugar, well, you didn't ask me to give up sugar right away, but like it was something that we talked about for a long time. And and I started to understand, you know, that certain foods didn't serve me. They also felt terrible. So we spent a lot of time, especially in the beginning, talking about things I ate and how it felt and what did that trigger? Meaning, like, did it trigger feel like, you know, older stories about me? And, all of that, I think, is what helped me get past this idea that I was on a diet. We talked a lot about this is not a diet. Like, how do you shift off of how do you embrace this change versus like this is what I'm doing for now to lose weight, you know?
And today, looking back at that question, how much of this is addiction versus sort of disordered eating and emotional eating? What would you say today? Do you have any more clarity around that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I uh, for me, I don't feel like as much of it was addiction necessarily. That doesn't mean that there's not foods that I don't eat. So, and it was interesting to discover what I don't eat. It was different. Some of it was different than I thought. For example, if I have dry roasted cashews in my house, I will find a million reasons to eat them. And some of the junk like chips, for example, I was surprised that chips were more of an issue. Interestingly, sweets, which I had thought were a huge issue for me, are less of an issue. I really don't care about them. And in fact, recently I had to go to the city and I brought my husband back a treat. Like even that word, I hate that word, but I bought him back a sweet, we'll say. And in the past, I would have eaten that. It would have never made it home. I didn't even think twice about it. And well, is that true? I looked at it and I thought, in the past, I would eat you. But I'm not going to. This is for Bill. It's not my food. And I brought it back for him, and it was not, I had no energy around it. It was just what it is. And he was very happy to get it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, what shifts or changes did you start to notice to your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being as you were going on the journey of real working change?
Well, first of all, it was very exciting to start to lose some weight. It was, and it still is, because I'm still on that journey. Um, but really, the biggest changes weren't physical ones. The biggest changes were emotional. And I have historically been a person that's hard on myself, and it's something I've worked on in therapy before. But I didn't understand the impact that my eating disorder was having on my relationship with myself. It was a pretty harsh relationship. And through healing my eating disorder, I have, first of all, discovered that a level of compassion for myself that I didn't know was possible. You hear these terms, right? Like, oh, practice self-love, whatever. But to actually experience that is profound. I didn't know that that was possible. I really didn't. I had no idea. I had no idea how much healing my eating disorder would therefore make me kinder and more patient with people in my life, make me better at my job because I was just calmer and more centered as a person. Like it really, there's not an aspect of my life that this shift hasn't positively impacted. Yeah, it's shocking. I just thought, okay, I'm gonna have a normal relationship with food. I really wanted that. But I didn't really understand what I was really wanting was freedom from, uh, I guess this sounds intense, but like emotional self-harm. That's really what was happening. And I didn't get that that's what was going to shift. Chloe.
And what were some, since you've started to mention some other one, what were some other big surprises to you that you learned on the journey? Anything else?
Well, I learned a lot about my history, my historic relationship to food for sure. Like I was a kid who, um, you know, was made to feel like I wasn't allowed to enjoy food. I wasn't allowed to enjoy my body, really. And those things have shifted now. And and so enjoying food always had this like hangover, emotional hangover associated with it because I wasn't really supposed to eat that, whatever that was. So that was a huge one. And then also, um, making decisions like sugar is not one of my foods, and mostly I'm not having flour, like in my life, became an interesting challenge for me as a cook. And I started leaning into things like, all right, if I want to make something taste Thai, or if I want to make something taste Middle Eastern, or if I want to make something taste like South American, like Mexican, or how do I do that with herbs and spices? And what ingredients that are whole, real ingredients can I use and play around with? And if I want to be balanced about starches, for example, can I use other vegetables if I want to say stuff a pepper, which I was already kind of doing. But yeah, so it's become uh, really interesting. I remember for a while I would talk to you about my recipes at length, and we would have to like redirect me back to actually doing the work. But yeah, lots of things like that, and yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
And what would you tell someone starting out like you did, however long ago? You can look back and look at yourself. What would you tell someone starting out about this journey and how to approach it, I guess?
Well, it takes uh, a willingness to like completely be honest, and you don't have to rush yourself. Like you don't have to worry about how long it's going to take. As long as you're willing to truly be honest with yourself and with Chloe, you, um, that's really what this is about. Like, go as deep as you can. Like, sit with your feelings. Like, if you can't identify what you're feeling, give yourself some space around that. Just breathe into it. And these are all things that you hear about lots of things, right? And lots of processes in life. But what you're trying to do is reconnect and heal the relationship you have with yourself and with food. There's a reason why food has become a, something you go to comfort yourself and reward yourself. And you start to discover other ways of doing that. And it takes time. It just takes time. And it's worth every week and month that it takes. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes.
And last question, Jill. What are some of the biggest things you've taken away from the experience that you're carrying with you through your life today and ongoing, do you think?
I think it's that I'm not a broken person, that this isn't, uh, I'm not, I mean, it's really an interesting thing to say. Like, I feel like I have healed my eating disorder. I didn't know I could ever say that. I thought this is something that's going to define me for the rest of my life. And I don't feel that way at all anymore. And, um, I don't feel like it's not scary for me to be in a room, whether that's a party or that's a restaurant or that's like someone has come over to my house and brought whatever, a food that maybe isn't something I would typically eat. I have like a toolkit now. I can look at it. I can look at anything and I think about like my first thing is like you can eat that. If you eat that, how is that going to feel? What's the repercussions of it? And I can think about that. I know what things feel like in my body. I know how they affect me. It's less about a focus on weight loss or gain. It's really about the emotional impact that something that food has on me. And because that's my focus and priority, I'm safe with it because my relationship to myself is different now. And I have, I got a lot of tools for coping with stress and coping with sadness and maybe some of the harder feelings that we have that we want to escape from. Like I have those tools now. Ironically, after so much therapy, like I was circling it, And we don't learn in a straight line. We learn in a very kind of this kind of so I'll continue learning about all this um and now, I'm focusing on um my physical well-being. So we, I made it pretty clear decision that like I can't commit too much to exercise and moving while I'm working on this deeper stuff. And now I am. Now I'm trying to create more of a practice, and it's really a practice of self-care, which again, another term that I've always kind of um I don't know, bristled against, but if you just like think about what that means, I really struggled to take care of myself, that I felt like I deserved to take care of myself. And now I don't feel that way anymore. And it's a slow process that I'm, making my way toward. I had been struggling with